What's going on, guys? Super Savage 789 here, bringing you guys a video. Today we're doing What If Ultron Was Good Part 3. In the last part, we covered the events of Civil War and how things went with Ultron and Bruce being there. The airport fight was very chaotic, leading to a much better win for Team Iron Man. This then assisted that same team, with Rhodey being fit enough to help fight against Steve and Bucky. We left off with Steve breaking out the secret Avengers, which is where we'll pick up from. The Avengers team would all be focused on sneaking around and staying out of trouble like they did in canon with some new allies. Just the sheer amount of them, they would have to move in 3 different parties to avoid being caught. Steve and Sam would mainly focus on finding the missions for the team to do, as well as focusing on monitoring the team as a whole. Natasha and Bruce would be moving around, doing their best to keep out conflict to make sure Bruce doesn't have another rampage. While Nat would still be helping Steve, Bruce would mainly take a step back and just help with trivial things. He would also spend his time researching gamma radiation, getting a much better idea on how it works. He'd even begin to build a gamma lab. As for Wanda and Pietro, they'd be proving their worth as Avengers, gaining the trust of the team. Not much really happens with them other than them being allies for Steve and the Avengers in the future. Meanwhile, Ultron would be focusing on continuing to make his army grow. He'd be making different schematics and different models as his main body becomes a hub of defense around the world. He would spend most of his time at the Nexus computer lab to have the most access to the internet as quick as possible. He would also focus on making more advanced suits for Tony and Rhodey. What this means is he's able to make schematics for stronger armors. I think this can mean that Tony would have a suit that wields nanobots by the time of Homecoming even. With Hulk on Earth, there would of course be some changes in Thor Ragnarok. However, these changes would be shockingly minuscule. The champion on Sakaar would be Korg instead of Hulk. This would mean that when Thor fights in the arena, he'd have a much easier fight, leading to him defeating Korg without needing to enter his lightning form. This would mean that he'd become the Grandmaster's new champion. In his new chambers, Thor would call for Valkyrie and ask for her help, getting the same response. He would then still escape and would begin looking for one of the Grandmaster's vehicles immediately, since the Quinjet never came to Sakaar. Valkyrie would run to Thor and, together with Loki, they form a team. They would then escape through the Devil's Anus and rock up to Asgard where they begin fighting Hela and her forces. Here is the most apparent place where that missing Hulk comes into play. When Fenris attacks, Valkyrie would have to fight off the dog instead of the Hulk. She of course would have a harder time doing so since she's weaker than the Hulk, however she's a much more tactical fighter. So I think that she could outsmart them and kick it off the bridge to its death. The rest of Ragnarok will then play out like normal, with Asgard being destroyed and the survivors heading off for Earth. Not much really changes for Ragnarok, as I'm sure you can see. When arriving into the Infinity War movie, Thanos would still kill half the Asgardians. With no Hulk there would of course be a few changes. For one thing, Loki would go for the secret dagger attack on Thanos earlier than he originally did. As he's being choked out, Thor would be screaming for his brother until he feels the warmth of dark magic coating his body. With no Hulk to send to Earth, Heimdall decides to send Thor to Earth instead. Loki and Heimdall then still die, and the ship is torched as Thanos and the Black Order split up to get the other stones. Thor would then crash into the Sanctum and meets back up with Strange and Wong. They will then go and get Tony, briefing him on the situation. Thor declares that he needs to go and get a new hammer, as there is no other way to defeat Thanos. However, Strange calls that idea a waste of time. The priority should be keeping the Time Stone out of the grasp of Thanos. Thor points out that Nidavellir is far out of the grasp of where Thanos and his henchmen are right now. It'll take a while to find him, and at that point, Thor would already have his Thanos killing weapon. As they're talking though, Tony's phone would begin to beep, which he'd promptly answer, noticing how it's Ultron on the other end. My spatial drones are currently in combat from 2 different ships. My numbers are dwindling quickly. Preparation for combat should be made. Tony would pull out his flip phone, contemplating whether or not he should call Steve. He then throws the phone to Thor and tells him to make the call as he puts on his Mark 50 armor, flying off to go fight. Thor would just look at the old technology and then tries to speak into it to call Steve Rogers, making him confused. So Wong would help him. Tony would show up at the Nexus, where Ultron is, asking how much longer they've got. Ultron states that it's mere moments before one of the ships arrives here, probably for his stone. He's already evacuated everyone, and has Jarvis backing up as much data from the computers as possible. So now the only thing they can do is fight. A fight would then occur between Iron Man and Ultron against Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight. This would be heavily in the favor of the Earth's heroes due to Tony being stronger, as well as due to the teamwork aspect that they can capitalize on. It leads to them being placed on the ropes and forced to flee before they are defeated by the duo. Meanwhile, Thor, Wong, and Strange should be faced down by Moore and Cole Obsidian. so Thor would of course be bloodlusted when seeing them, since they killed half his people. His body would begin to spark as he lunges at Cull Obsidian, beginning to beat him up. His fight would be very one-sided, since Thor wouldn't let up on beating him down. Using a lightning strike, he'd shoot clean through the gut, making him collapse onto the ground. Thor turns his back on what he assumes is a dead body, dropping his guard as Cull Obsidian goes for one last attack. Before it lands though, Spider-Man arrives and kicks the alien across the park where it bites the dust. He then introduces himself to Thor in a cute but awkward Peter Parker scene. Meanwhile, Strange and Wong would begin fighting more, with that pretty much going beat for beat. It leads to more kidnapping Strange, with Thor and Peter in pursuit of the ship. Using Thor's strength, the duo manage to break inside the ship and sneak inside it as it leaves orbit. Peter would then come up with the alien strategy to defeat more, which the duo would do somewhat like canon. A debate would then occur between Thor and Strange whether or not to return to Earth or head to Nidavellir. Ultimately, Thor would win the debate, and the trio would redirect the ship to go get a new Thanos-killing weapon. Off with the Guardians, they would still head to the Asgard wreckage and find no signs of life anywhere. Combined with the fact that there's nothing salvageable there to take, the trip was a bust. It leaves them completely oblivious to Thanos beginning his stone conquest. After Thanos picks up the Reality Stone, he will return to his ship, deciding to send his daughter a message. He'd send a video throughout the galaxy of him torturing Nebula, using the power and space stones, telling Gamora to come and save her sister. Of course, the Guardians would all immediately head to go and save her. They'd show up to his ship, where Thanos messes with them using the Reality Stone. After all the Guardians are crumpled on the ground, Thanos tells his daughter that if her sister's pain won't be enough, then maybe her fake family will convince her. She would tell him the location of the Soul Stone, and the duo head over there, where ultimately Gamora is killed and Thanos acquires his fourth stone. Back on Earth, the Avengers would meet up at Avengers Base, leading to Tony and Steve reuniting earlier. After a short couple lines of dialogue, Tony would give Steve his shield back. The idea of destroying the Mind Stone is much easier here, since Ultron is a hive mind and won't die from its removal. It isn't immediately done, however. Ultron would point out how Thanos' forces will be sent into a frenzy upon learning of its destruction, and with his space forces limited, all of them will have to regroup on Earth. So if they wish to avoid casualties, they'll need to lure the Black Order to somewhere they can defeat them. So they would all travel to Wakanda. When Thanos arrives on Titan, he'd be quick to realize that Moore is not present. This would either mean he's late or that he's dead. To check where his lackey is, Thanos uses the Soul Stone and searches the universe for him to find no results, confirming his death. Same appears to be the case with Cull Obsidian. This means that the person in possession of the Time Stone must have finished him off, so he begins searching for the Time Stone. He clearly had a way to locate the stones, and it was stated that the Soul Stone has a certain wisdom, so I believe he could search for the stones, with this stone at least. Before he can locate the stone, however, the Guardians show up and begin to fight him along with Nebula. The fight on Titan would be much quicker since the heavy hitters aren't present like Strange and Tony. While they can't damage him, they can buy time for forces unknown to them. Back in Wakanda, Wanda would end up destroying the Mind Stone, leading to Ultron's body becoming limp. Another Ultron would then walk in and drags the body away, whistling as he does so. Shuri mentions that someone's trying to hack her tech, leading Ultron to apologize. The Black Order would then arrive at the barrier of Wakanda, leading to Steve telling them the stone was destroyed. They don't believe this is true, and swear that they'll burn them to the ground to find the stone. So the Outriders begin killing themselves to get in like normal. When the barrier drops, everyone would then begin fighting. It'd be cool to see Ultron drones fighting alongside Wakandan soldiers against the Outriders. Also against Corvus Glaive, a six-armed Ultron would begin to fight him and would ultimately kill him after a brief fight. Something to note in this fight is that Ultron would gloat about destroying the Mind Stone by dancing around his vision body with some other droids. He's truly Tony's creation in both cockiness and strength. Back with Thanos, he'd end up defeating the Guardians, leaving them all at the brink of death. Thanos would locate the Time Stone and would open up a portal to head over there. Before he leaves though, he would look back at Peter.
If it brings you any solace, you fought well. Gamora would have been proud.
Thanos then drops the moon on them as he leaves, leading to them being knocked out and unable to move. Stepping back a bit, the trio arrive at Nidavellir and meet Eitri. It'd be cool seeing Peter geek out over all the space stuff there. As Thor forges his axe, Strange will look into the future and realizes there is only one way to win. He'd also inform everyone Thanos' location on Vormir, since it houses the Soul Stone, which Thor would take note of. Thor would still have to open the forge, leading to Thor being knocked out and everyone having to look for the handle. That's of course when Thanos would arrive. Strange tells Peter to go look for the handle, which he agrees to, looking around the best he can. Thanos will look at Eitri and confess he's upset that even after the mercy he showed him, he wronged him again. He'll pay for that. Strange catches his attention and tells him that his business is with him, creating his iconic wizard shield things. A fight between Strange and Thanos then occurs, just like on Titan, all the while Peter and Ichiro look for the handle. Just before they find the handle, Strange will give it the time stone under the lie that he needs to spare the rest of them. In reality, he saw the future and he knows he has to do this. So just before Thor gets up, Thanos is gone, ready to fight in Wakanda. When Thanos shows up, he'd be greeted by the battlefield of the Outriders being slaughtered. He isn't hostile, nor is he making any moves for combat. Every competent fighter would show up with Tony telling him he already lost. They destroyed the stone hours ago. He's just shredding meaningless blood. Instead of flying off the handle, Thanos keeps his composure and takes a breath of air before speaking.
You'll forgive me if that sounds like a bluff.
You want proof? Oh, I'll give you proof. Tony, don't. No, Steve, no, I will. We won, right? The stone is dust. He can't snap. The fight in New York, it was him. With that stone he gave to Loki. He lost because we kick ass. And I'm gonna show him that. There's a pause, before Steve gestures to Ultron to grab it. Of course he would, no problem, throwing the Vision body in front of Thanos. He falls to one knee, using the Soul Stone to feel the remnants of the Mind Stone still there. Before any of them can react, the Time Stone's ring form around his arm lead to him rewinding time and grabbing the Mind Stone. He then places it in the gauntlet. The energy surges through him as all of Earth's forces begin to fight him. One by one, he dismantles them all, using all the stone's powers. As he goes to snap though, Thor shows up, leading to the same thing occurring. Everyone then begins to dust, with Peter and Tony's reunion being that much sadder. Something else notable is that Rocket and Nebula would still be unconscious, so the moment they awaken, they won't know their friend's fate right away. Truly, a much more sad ending to Infinity War, in my opinion. And also, it's going to be the ending of this part, because that's where I'm going to leave it here. Make sure you like and subscribe, and comment down below what's happened in the fourth and final part. I've really enjoyed the way I constructed Infinity War, with just a few changes. Spider-Man and Thor's dynamic could be fun to see, especially with him being in space, as I mentioned. Also, I do think that Endgame would be much more different, as you're going to see. And so, yeah, bye!